This amazing story begins with a view of Mars, where humans have established numerous colonies. Over the years, they have made significant progress in developing Mars, transforming it into an advanced planet similar to Earth. Governments have set up police bases across various locations, and numerous mining areas have been created to extract different types of resources from beneath the Martian surface. One notable aspect is that Earth has been reserved only for law-abiding citizens, ensuring a peaceful society. As a result, all criminals and dangerous individuals have been exiled to Mars. To accommodate them, several prisons have been constructed alongside the mining areas, serving as a form of punishment. The scene then shifts to a high-level government meeting, where officials are gathered to discuss an urgent matter. The head of the meeting has an important announcement: an unmanned train has arrived from one of the mining zones. Upon investigation, it was found to be operating on autopilot, but what raised serious concerns were the bloodstains inside the train. Further examination led to the discovery of a single survivor, one of their soldiers named Melanie. She was immediately taken for medical treatment and provided with the best care possible. The mystery deepens because just a few days ago, Melanie and her team of soldiers had been sent to a prison in one of the mining areas to retrieve some criminals. However, something went terribly wrong, and now they need to conduct a deep investigation to uncover the truth behind the incident. As Melanie begins to recover within a few hours, she is brought before the officials to recount what happened. She starts narrating everything from the beginning. She explains that when her team was traveling toward the prison by train, several soldiers accompanied her. Among them was a man named Butler, who secretly loved Melanie but had never confessed his feelings. He would often steal glances at her, but Melanie, focused on her mission, paid no attention. Another key figure in the team was Commander Helena. As they traveled, Helena briefed Melanie about the criminals they were supposed to extract from the prison. However, none of them knew that something horrifying awaited them at their destination. However, Helena specifically instructs the team to pay extra attention to one particular criminal, James. He was a notorious mass murderer who had taken thousands of lives. Because of his ruthlessness, Helena warns everyone to remain on high alert, as an emergency could arise at any moment. Their train finally reaches the mining area where the prison is located. As soon as the soldiers step out with their weapons, an eerie feeling washes over them. It feels as if someone is watching them. Strange noises echo around the prison, making the atmosphere even more unsettling. Meanwhile, Butler sees this as an opportunity to talk to Melanie. He moves closer to her, trying to start a conversation. However, as always, Melanie remains focused on the mission and ignores him completely, moving ahead without paying him any attention. What confuses the soldiers the most is the complete absence of security personnel. There were supposed to be numerous guards stationed around the base camp and prison, but there's no sign of them anywhere. This is highly unusual. Realizing that something is seriously wrong, Helena orders her soldiers to move inside and investigate. The team splits up into different sections, with Butler, unsurprisingly, sticking close to Melanie. As the two advance further inside, they come across a horrifying sight: a severed human hand lying in their path. The gruesome scene leaves Butler in shock, his eyes wide with fear. Without wasting time, they contact the rest of the team to report what they have found. One by one, the other soldiers regroup, and together they cautiously move forward. However, the real horror begins when they enter a large chamber. Inside, they find the prison guards and staff, all slaughtered and hanging upside down from the ceiling. The brutality of the scene leaves them speechless. Helena examines the bodies closely and realizes that the wounds are fresh, meaning the massacre happened only a short while ago. Fear starts creeping into her mind, something that had never happened to her before, despite countless dangerous missions. Determined to uncover the truth, she tells her team, "We need to find those criminals, especially James. If they are responsible for this massacre, we have no choice but to eliminate them. Otherwise, we will be the next ones to die." For the first time in her life, Helena feels real fear. This mission is unlike anything she has ever faced before, and deep down, she knows something far worse is lurking in the shadows. After searching for a while, the team finally discovers a prison where several criminals are being held. However, despite scanning the area, they find no sign of James. Inside the prison, they come across a woman named Vidi. The moment Helena sees her, she recognizes her immediately: Dr. Vidi, a renowned scientist and biologist. However, Helena is confused. What is a scientist like her doing in a high-security prison? When questioned, Dr. Vidi gives a cryptic response: "I feel safest here. There is no danger for me in this place." She claims that she had come here to conduct some experiments, but so far, she hasn't succeeded. However, she is certain that she will get her results soon. Helena, sensing that something is wrong, presses further. "What are you afraid of? What could possibly threaten a scientist like you? But instead of answering, Dr. Vitti simply smiles and replies, "You'll all find out soon enough." Before Helena can demand more answers, strange noises echo from outside. Alarmed, the entire team rushes toward the source of the sounds. They reach a door from where the noises are coming. When Butler cautiously pushes it open, they see a woman standing there. However, something is deeply wrong with her. She behaves erratically, as if she is being controlled by an unseen force. Her movements are unnatural, her body is burning with an abnormally high fever, and she seems completely unaware of her surroundings. Before the soldiers can make sense of what's happening, another figure appears, a man trapped inside a vehicle outside. Melanie rushes to check on him. However, just like the woman, the man is also behaving strangely, his eyes void of recognition, his body twitching uncontrollably. Assuming the man is trapped, Helena orders the team to destroy the vehicle's door and rescue him. But something inexplicable happens. Before they can save him, the man suddenly takes his own life. Melanie stands frozen for a moment, unable to comprehend what just happened. But then, terrified screams erupt from inside. She rushes back into the prison and is met with a horrifying sight. James, the most dangerous criminal of all, has captured one of her teammates. The real nightmare is just beginning. James had only one demand: "Let me go, or I'll kill your teammate." Melanie, staying calm, tries to reason with him. "Let her go. She just joined our team. If you want revenge, take me instead." Slowly, she moves closer to James while continuing to speak, ensuring that he remains distracted. At the right moment, she lunges forward, freeing her teammate but putting herself in James' grasp instead. However, Melanie is far from helpless. She is highly skilled in combat, and within seconds, she counters James with a swift attack, knocking his weapon out of his hands. A fight breaks out. But James is cunning. Before she can subdue him completely, he manages to escape. Determined not to let him get away, Melanie regroups with her fellow soldiers and splits up to track him down. James must be captured at any cost. As Melanie ventures deeper into the facility, she enters a dark chamber. There, she sees a horrifying sight: a woman crouched on the ground, eating human flesh. This was no ordinary prisoner, this was something far worse. Before Melanie can react, the woman suddenly lunges at her, trying to tear her apart. Fortunately, Melanie has her weapon ready. She fights back, defending herself and eventually killing the monstrous woman. But her relief is short-lived. Suddenly, more cannibals emerge from the darkness, their eyes filled with hunger, their grotesque mouths smeared with blood. They all charge toward Melanie at once. Just when it seems like she's about to be overwhelmed, gunfire erupts from behind her. James, armed with a weapon, he shoots down every last cannibal, saving Melanie's life. For a brief moment, they stare at each other. An unspoken truce. But Melanie, ever the soldier, doesn't hesitate. The second she sees an opening, she signals her team, and together, they capture James. James is confused. For the first time in his life, he tried to do something good, yet now he is being thrown back into a cell. Melanie, however, thanks him. "I'm keeping you safe." Before anything else can be said, Butler rushes in, looking worried. "We can't find Helena." Melanie's eyes widen. Something is wrong. Then, outside, Butler spots something: another cannibal, a woman, feasting on a fresh kill. The nightmare is far from over. Butler saw the horrifying scene unfold before his eyes. A cannibal was running away, carrying a severed head. Realizing the danger, Butler immediately chased after her alone, determined to stop whatever was happening. However, when he finally caught up and saw the severed head clearly, a chill ran down his spine. It wasn't just anyone, it was their commander, Helena. Helena had been killed. Shock and grief barely had time to settle in when strange sounds echoed through the air. Butler followed the noises and moved to the other side of the rocky terrain. What he saw there left him frozen in terror. A massive group of cannibals had gathered, screaming and howling, as if they were preparing for an attack. Their hideout was horrifying, a graveyard filled with the mutilated bodies of soldiers and civilians. It was clear that these creatures were planning something far bigger than random killings. Realizing the urgency, Butler turned back immediately, rushing to warn his teammates. Meanwhile, back at the lockup, Melanie was in danger. A crazed woman lunged at her, attacking viciously. Reacting quickly, Melanie pulled out her gun and shot the attacker down. But what happened next was even more terrifying. A dark, invisible force slowly emerged from the woman's body. It slithered through the air like a ghost, searching for another host. Within moments, the dark force entered the body of an old man nearby. Neither Melanie nor her teammates had any idea what had just happened. They only saw a dead woman, but something far more sinister was at play. At the same time, Butler frantically used his radio to warn his team. He spoke quickly, his voice filled with urgency. "We need to get out of here. It's worse than we thought." But as he was speaking, some of the cannibals spotted him. Their hungry eyes locked onto him, and they started chasing him. Butler ran as fast as he could, heading toward the base camp, but the cannibals were right behind him. If they caught him, he was as good as dead. Reaching a large metal door, Butler pounded on it desperately. "Let me in. Open the door." The cannibals were almost upon him when, finally, the door opened just in time, and hands grabbed him, pulling him inside. But as soon as Butler got in, he found himself surrounded by men aiming their guns at him. "Who the hell are you?" one of them demanded. These men were not part of his team. They claimed to be guards responsible for maintaining the prison systems. Butler, catching his breath, quickly explained everything. "We are soldiers. My team is still out there. And we're all trapped in this nightmare." He then warned them about the cannibals outside, hundreds of them, ready to attack. The nightmare was only beginning. Butler knew that if they wanted to survive, they had to reach the train and escape. "Come with us," he urged the guards. "If we stick together, we stand a better chance of getting out alive." With that, the group headed towards Melanie's location, moving quickly but cautiously. However, the moment they arrived, everything took a turn for the worse. The so-called guards turned on them, raising their weapons. It was then that the truth became clear: these men were never real guards. They were working for James. And their leader? James's own brother. Their mission was never about survival, it was about breaking James and his men out of the prison. With their weapons aimed at the soldiers, Melanie had no choice but to comply. They forced her to reveal James's exact location. Within minutes, James was free. And as soon as their leader was released, the traitors turned on Melanie and Butler, locking them inside one of the prison cells. Inside the dark cell, Melanie wasted no time. She tried reasoning with James, explaining that they were all in grave danger. "You have no idea what's out there," she said, her voice serious. "There's an army of cannibals waiting to tear us apart. If we keep fighting each other, we're all going to die. The only way to survive is if we work together." James listened. For the first time, he wasn't acting out of arrogance or aggression, he was actually thinking. He turned to his men and, after a brief moment of hesitation, ordered them to release Melanie and Butler. This was it. They were no longer enemies. Now, they were one team. The escape plan. Melanie quickly laid out a plan. "We need weapons," she said. "Fighting these creatures won't be easy. We have to share whatever firepower we have." The soldiers and James's men armed themselves, distributing their weapons evenly. They knew what was coming next, the final battle for survival. They moved towards the train, their only escape route. But just as they stepped onto the ground outside the prison, the worst happened. The cannibals spotted them. Hundreds of them. The monsters shrieked, charging forward like a wave of death. And then, all hell broke loose. The monstrous cannibals launched a brutal, relentless assault on Melanie and her team, attempting to tear them apart with massive explosions and sheer force. Despite being outnumbered, Melanie's team fought back with everything they had, trying to push through toward the train, their only escape. However, the horde of flesh-eating creatures was too overwhelming. The creatures ripped apart bodies, decapitated soldiers, and shattered bones without hesitation. Realizing that reaching the train was nearly impossible, Melanie ordered her team to retreat back to the chamber. They fought their way back, but in the process, many more soldiers perished. By the time they reached safety, only a handful of survivors remained. Melanie herself was badly injured and lost consciousness during the retreat. When she woke up, James was beside her, and she quickly learned the devastating truth: James' brother was dead, along with most of his men. Their forces had been reduced to a fraction of their original numbers. Outside, the cannibals were growing in numbers. They had become frenzied, their hunger for human flesh now unstoppable. Meanwhile, inside the lockup, something even more disturbing was unfolding. The old man, who had earlier been possessed by a mysterious dark entity, had started losing control over his own body. Strange marks appeared on his skin, and his eyes turned pitch black. He was transforming into one of them, a monstrous, bloodthirsty creature. Melanie, filled with confusion and desperation, decided to confront Dr. Vitti, demanding to know the truth about what was happening. At last, Dr. Vitti revealed the horrifying secret. Years ago, during an experimental research mission, their team had discovered a massive cave deep beneath Mars' surface. The experts had warned them not to go inside, as the cave was ancient and unknown. However, the scientists had ignored the warnings, and that mistake had now doomed them all. Despite the experts' warnings, the investors and researchers were determined to explore the mysterious underground cave beneath Mars' surface. They conducted numerous studies, unlocking ancient doors that had been sealed for centuries. However, one of these doors concealed something terrifying. The moment they unlocked it, a strange black smoke erupted and spread rapidly. Any human who came in contact with the dust began to lose their consciousness, their minds warped and corrupted by an unseen force. Over time, these infected individuals transformed into the cannibalistic monsters that now roamed freely. Dr. Viti pointed toward the old man in the lockup, confirming that he too was undergoing the transformation. The malevolent spirit inside him was controlling his actions, turning him into something inhuman. Anyone who came face to face with these creatures would not be spared. They had an insatiable hunger for human flesh. A moment of truth, Butler's confession. As the horrifying truth unfolded, Butler pulled Melanie aside, leading her into a secluded chamber. His face was serious, his voice heavy with emotion. Butler finally admitted his deepest feelings. He had loved Melanie for a long time and had even dreamed of marrying her. But now, with death looming over them, he feared they might never get the chance. Melanie, moved by his honesty, finally accepted his love, and for a brief moment, they held each other close, cherishing what little time they had left. It was a rare moment of warmth and connection amidst the chaos surrounding them. The spirit's next host. Their moment was interrupted by the sudden sound of gunfire. Rushing outside, they saw that one of their allies had killed the old man. But the nightmare wasn't over. The evil spirit inside the old man emerged, now free and searching for a new host. Before anyone could react, it lunged toward Melanie, possessing her body in an instant. Melanie collapsed, unconscious. Her teammates rushed to wake her, but the terrifying realization hit them all: Melanie was now possessed. If they kept her with them, she could turn against them at any moment. Butler's heartbreaking decision. Butler, heartbroken and desperate, knew there was no saving her. He remembered that Melanie often turned to drugs in moments of distress, so with a shaking hand, he gave her a dose. Melanie consumed it, unaware that it was perhaps the last thing she would ever take. The group dragged Melanie's unconscious body outside, fearing that the evil spirit inside her was still in control. However, as time passed, her body temperature began to rise dramatically. This was a direct effect of the drug Butler had given her, which was now interfering with the entity's hold on her. The spirit struggled to maintain control but ultimately failed. Defeated, it left Melanie's body, vanishing into the unknown. When Melanie regained consciousness, she tried to rejoin her allies, but before she could, she was attacked by several cannibals. Fighting them off, she used a rope to pull herself back into the safety of the chamber. Through a security camera, she tried to prove to her team that she was back to normal. Butler and James were skeptical. They couldn't believe she had survived possession. They opened the gate but kept their guns pointed at her, waiting for any sign of deception. However, after talking to her, they realized that she was truly herself again. The spirit had completely left her. The final stand against the cannibals. Melanie quickly warned the team. The cannibals were planning a massive assault. She had seen them forming groups, carrying weapons, and preparing for a final attack. Outside, the monstrous horde began their coordinated assault. Armed with massive weapons, they smashed through the barricades, forcing their way inside. Thanks to Melanie's warning, the survivors were ready. They grabbed their weapons and fought back fiercely. Gunfire erupted, and the battle became an all-out war. The survivors, though outnumbered, refused to give up, gunning down as many cannibals as they could. But the horde seemed endless. No matter how many they killed, more kept coming. The creatures knew only one thing: slaughtering humans, and they wouldn't stop until everyone was dead. Realizing they couldn't hold their ground forever, Melanie and her team retreated, making their way toward the train. Their only hope was escaping the base. Under heavy attack, the survivors rushed aboard. With no time to waste, they started the engine, and the train began to move forward, carrying them away from the nightmare that had unfolded. As the train moved away from the danger zone, the survivors finally breathed a sigh of relief. They had escaped, at least for now. However, Melanie wasn't satisfied. She knew that if they left things as they were, the monstrous plague would only continue to spread. Over time, the entire planet would be overrun by these flesh-eating creatures. She proposed a bold and dangerous plan: destroy the power source of the colony. If they could obliterate the power cells and the entire energy generation system, the resulting explosion would wipe out the remaining creatures. Most of the crew agreed with her plan, except Dr. Viti, who remained hesitant. Despite the doubts, the group turned the train around, heading straight back to the danger zone. The ambush and explosive strategy. Knowing that as soon as the creatures saw the train, they would attack, the team prepared a trap. They detached the train's compartments, planting bombs in each one. As expected, the cannibals swarmed the train. The team detonated the explosives, creating massive blasts that wiped out half of the horde. However, many creatures still remained, and the battle was far from over. The final mission: destroying the power core. Melanie and James rushed toward the power generation facility, carrying their last set of explosives. Their goal was simple: plant the bombs, blow up the power cells, and escape before everything was destroyed. But tragedy struck. During the battle, Butler was killed. The man who had dreamed of a future with Melanie, the man who had stood by her side, was gone. His dreams shattered forever. Despite the loss, Melanie and James pushed forward, determined to finish the mission. They successfully planted the bombs inside the power core and ran for their lives. A final sacrifice. Both of them made it back to the last remaining train engine and started moving forward. But James noticed something alarming. There were still several cannibals left, and they were climbing on top of the train. James knew that if they weren't stopped, no one would survive. With no other choice, James climbed onto the roof of the train, preparing for one final battle. As Melanie fought off the remaining cannibals, she struggled to steer the train in the right direction. Meanwhile, she and James took down the leader of the flesh eaters, ensuring the last resistance was eliminated. Once they reached a safe distance, they triggered the detonation, and with a deafening explosion, the power core was destroyed. The massive blast wiped out every single creature, leaving no survivors. However, Melanie was gravely injured. When she finally opened her eyes, she found James tending to her wounds. To her surprise, James revealed that he had once served as a medic in the military forces before falling into a life of crime due to unfortunate circumstances. Feeling grateful and indebted, Melanie promised to speak in his favor to the military authorities, hoping they would pardon his crimes. But James simply laughed. Then, without warning, he handcuffed her. James escaped. Melanie, furious and confused, pointed her gun at James, demanding an explanation. James, with a smirk, told her the truth: no matter what she did, the authorities would never forgive him. His past would always haunt him, and he knew that his fate was sealed if he ever returned. So, he chose his own path, escaping into the unknown. Melanie, understanding the inevitability of his situation, lowered her weapon, allowing him to disappear into the wilderness. She then returned to the military base, where she reported everything that had happened. The final mystery: what happened to James? In a tense debriefing, the military officials questioned Melanie about James' fate. Her answer was simple: when I woke up, he was gone. I don't know if he survived or perished. There's no proof either way. With no evidence to confirm his fate, the military could not reach a conclusion. And so, with unanswered questions and unresolved destinies, this thrilling adventure came to an end.